At this time, I'll call the Budget Committee meeting to order and ask for everyone to please register their presence.
Five present, 0 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now I'll ask that the emergency announcement please be read.
Before we get started, let me read the emergency evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency evacuation, an alarm will sound. Everyone should exit the building by way of the nearest stairwell in a safe and effective manner. If the nearest stairwell is blocked by smoke, use the other stairwell. Do not use the elevator. Once you have reached the main floor, follow the exit signs to exit the building and quickly proceed away from the building. Please be mindful of others evacuating and of emergency vehicles.
And I'll ask if there any input on items on the agenda. Yes, if you'd come up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Budget Committee. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Ron French, and I represent the 9th District on the Blount County Commission, Seat A. And I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the 4 volunteer fire departments that provide much-needed emergency medical services for the citizens of our county in the outlying areas of Blount County. And I speak to the budget from last year and also what I've seen as the proposed budget this year. We are providing the Sheriff's Department, we did last year, about $52,000 for 10 EMTs, and they provide a much-needed service in our county also. Also, on this year's budget, we're providing another $52,000 for 10 more EMTs. We have provided in the years past $3,750 to each one of those departments that are providing those much needed services in the outlying area. And if you do the math, that's about $5,200 per EMT for the Sheriff's Department. And if you do the math with 88 EMTs in those 4 departments and divide that into 15,000, that's about $375 per EMT for providing the same services. I'm here to speak on their behalf. Folks, they need more money. And I understand that the Sheriff's Department is training, needs this for training, and understand that they're employees of the county. But that doesn't change the fact that we're all paying the same amount to train these people and the same amount for the ambulance bags for these people. It's still the same amount whether they're employees of Blount County or employees or volunteers in these 4 departments. So that's a disparity right there. Not only that, but I'll also speak on behalf of the Blount County citizens. The Blount County citizens who live in these outlying areas pay the same taxes that these citizens pay where the sheriff is providing the EMT services. I feel like they deserve the same bang for their buck. I think we need to increase our funding to those departments so they can continue to provide these services. These departments have been providing those services for the last 20 to 25 years. Well, if you do the math again, we've been getting $3,750 to those departments, and in the last 10 years, they haven't gotten the same amount that the Sheriff's Department's gotten in 1 year. To me, that is a disparity. It's not fair to the people of the county, and it's not fair to the people that are providing these services. So I ask again, please, please look at this and please help these volunteer fire departments out, because most of their funding comes from the citizens of the county, and they need help. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Is there anyone else has input on items on the agenda? Seeing none, item D, approval of the minutes. The minutes that need approved are in your packet, and they are from April the 10th, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lewis, second by Ms. Hannum. Is there any discussion or any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask for those in favor of passing those minutes to say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Item E, Finance 1A, increases. Resolution 18-05001, General County, Blount County Sheriff's Office, $63,457. This is to use the proceeds from the sale of the used motorcycles for the purchase of new motorcycles. Do I have a motion to forward this to the Agenda Committee? Motion by Commissioner Lewis. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Kaler, is there any questions or any discussions on this? Seeing none, I'll ask you to register your vote, please. What do you got?
Will you second, did you second on your?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Did I mess it up?
There we go. There you go. 5 yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Item F, discussion possible action items. Item F1, Morganton Road interlocal agreement revisions to the exhibit. Do I have a motion to forward this to the Agenda Committee?
So moved.
Commissioner Cole made the motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Lewis, second. Is there any questions or discussions on this? Mr. Vineyard, do you wish to say something?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to disclose, you had one document added to the file. Superintendent and I met this morning with the city of Maryville, and they are taking their full interlocal agreement and exhibit to their June meeting, and we wanted to make sure we were doing exactly the same thing that they were doing, just like we did last year when this originally came before the commission. So we will be taking the full interlocal agreement and the exhibit. The exhibit is the only thing that has changed, though. And it just reduces the county's funding to 40%, and then the increase is to the city of Maryville.
Okay. Is there any other discussion or any questions on this? Seeing none, I'll ask that you register your vote, please.
Five yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 2, Resolution 18-05002. This is a grant application through the Highway Department, the Highway Transportation Alternatives Program for the Greenway Trail Phase 1. This is a $40,000 county match. Do I have a motion to forward this to the Agenda Committee?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Hannum makes the motion. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Lewis. Do I have any discussions or questions on this? Commissioner Cole?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions. I'm wondering, is this just one piece of a bigger plan, and what is the bigger plan, if anybody here can speak to that?
Superintendent Hedrick, would you like to come to the mic on this one, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Cole. This is The environmental and the design phase, 200,000, which our match is 40 in the 80/20. But this gets us started. But overall project is estimated to be about 1.6. And this 40 will come from highway fund balance.
The 1.6, it would be Blount County's portion of that, or is that the total
Yes, sir.
kind of
That's total
project
project.
estimate?
That's total project.
Okay. And from your discussions, kind of what level of support is there for this as far as the community, or have you had much input?
Yes, I think there's a lot of support in every meeting that I go to across the state. Walkability, mobility, those things are key. And when you start at what I call Perry's Mill and you go back down to Heritage High School and Heritage Middle, that's a pretty good connection right there for the school to be able to use it. Plus, it improves that Perry's Mill area as well.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I missed it, but the whole project, the 1.6 million, would be from where to where again?
That would start at Heritage High School,
Okay.
well, actually to middle school, go up to Perry's Mill, but it also goes around the corner to what we call Melrose, and that will put an area in that bridge that will be for pedestrian and bicycle traffic as well. So that whole section is in that package.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions or any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask you to register your vote, please.
Five yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Item 3, fiscal year 18-19 budget recommendation. And at this time, I'll ask Finance Director Randy Vineyard to address the overall fiscal year 18-19 budget recommendation that we have before us.
Mayor. For those who may not know, all of the proceedings from our two public hearings that we held in March and April have been online, so all the discussion you've had available to review. And I want to thank this body for the time that they spent in preparing for those meetings and participating in those meetings. And I also like to thank all of our elected officials, office holders, and department heads for their cooperation and compliance. We had a pretty aggressive schedule this year, and that the commission approved. And I'd very much appreciate the cooperation of all those folks involved in the process. After we concluded those two public hearings, as we did last year, we asked the committee individually to submit to us kind of the direction or the items that were of most interest to them so that we might be able to fashion something to present back to this body that reflected their collective input and decisions. We have that tonight, and on the screen, just for benefit of review, get my document pulled up. I got it. So those things that were repetitive throughout the budget process, we had postage that we took out of a centralized account and flipped back to all the accounts that have postage involved, so it gave us a truer picture of the true operating costs within the department. We also, as part of our IT modernization, as everyone knows, we now have moved on to the Google platform, so we have email accounts for everyone that's employed by the county. That there's a cost associated with that of $44 a year. We also, as part of the modernization program, have moved on from antiquity of landlines to voice over IP, and as a result, we've got new equipment that is in the process of being installed at this time. So phone costs will be shown in each operating department, whereas before they were all centralized. We also included a step increase for all employees who received a satisfactory performance evaluation. And then we, for the second year, are proposing a cost of living increase of 2.1%. There is only one recommendation to this body that you'll see as new positions in the budget, and that's in the highway department. There are no other funds in county government that are recommended to receive any new positions. And then you'll hear something a little later after we get a motion on the floor that were requested as supplemental requests, and that was the highway department, and then there'll be one that you'll hear shortly. And then all the grants that have been approved by county commission to this date have been included in the budget for those that have not expired.
Just click through them.
Please. For whatever reason, that's not showing. Yeah, second page. All right. Also, this budget proposal does not recommend any change in the current property tax rate of $2.47, nor does it contemplate any change in the distribution between general county, school operating fund, the school capital fund, or debt service. So it'd be a status quo property tax recommendation to fund the budget proposal for appropriations that you'll hear just momentarily. The letter that the mayor sent out to comply with state law sets the penny value at $342,500 per penny. That's an increase over the current year. And then you'll see now the spreadsheets that we've used to formulate and reflect the comments that each member of the budget committee has shared with me in private meetings with them. I can tell you that all of these were not unanimous, but there were certainly majority opinions of the collective group based on our tallies. The highlighted numbers reflect the changes that we are proposing, or that I am proposing, reflect the combined will of this committee. The highlighted numbers reflect what I'm asking for a motion on at the conclusion of when I run through these, and you can see the variance from what was recommended by the office holder or the department head. So the first one that I'll start with is the property assessor. The original proposal that was provided to us included a position that the property assessor no longer needs, and that's reducing that budget by $43,000 and some change. So the recommended appropriation for the property assessor would be $866,797. The next one is the circuit court judge account 53110. The recommendation is, if you look at the spending pattern of that particular unit of county government, we're recommending that the appropriation be set at $108,960. That more accurately reflects how their current spending rate is. That's a reduction of $16,864. The clerk and master account 53400 is being recommended at $537,852. That's a reduction of $30,000. The reason for that is the clerk requested an IT modernization project, and we also included that in the IT modernization program, and there was no point in the committee preferred to do that, but there was no point in recommending it in both places, so we eliminated it out of the clerk and master budget, but it remains in the IT modernization program. There is an increase in the volunteer fire departments of $23,000, and that sets that appropriation at $46,250. That would fund each of the volunteer fire departments at the same level as Blount Fire, and adds the rescue squad at $5,000. The library appropriate, that's account 54310. The library, and those are all in the general fund 101. The library fund is recommended that the appropriation be set at $2,183,841, and that is to eliminate the use of fund balance to balance their budget. That is Fund 115, account 56500, and that has a corresponding impact on the general fund on our transfer funds, and that's Fund 101, account 99100, and that would be reducing that by $11,452. On the school appropriation, Fund 141, the recommendation is to set the appropriation at $90,470,000. That is a reduction in the use of fund balance that was proposed by the school board of $2,917,000. The additional requests, all those are reductions. The additional requests that individually commissioners and committee members wanted to address were to, for the second year, fund 10 new emergency responders in the sheriff's office, and that's Fund 101, account 54110, and that would be an increase of $51,550. Also, an increase to the matching funds for the 5th Judicial Task Force, also in Fund 101, account 54110, and that's an increase of $30,000. In account Fund 100, account 54210, the request is to appropriate $155,000 for the medical contract increase in the jail. And it also, what that does is provide additional staffing that's provided by our contractor to address the medical needs among the jail population. And then there's a recommendation to increase overtime at the jail because of the inconsistent staffing transitions that we have and the demand of dealing with the load of inmates that we have. And that's account Fund 101, account 54210, and increase that $20,000. That is less than the increase they requested because, frankly, that's all the money that we had available to appropriate. And that sets the funding, appropriation funding for account 54110 at $12,803,004, and the appropriation for account 54210 at $9,343,399. And then lastly, the Highway Department, Fund 131, account 62,000, to fund the 5 new employees to fill out the 3 crews in the Highway Department. $238,135 is the increase, setting the appropriation for that account at $5,963,307, and that's to be funded from an increase in estimated collections of the sales tax that that fund receives. In total, the budget has excess revenue of $558, so technically that would drop to fund balance. Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that for starting and discussion that there be a motion and a second to at least get this on the floor so that we have a baseline to know what, if the body is willing to change anything, we would be able to track that.
Thank you, Mr. Vineyard. This time, I'd like to ask for a motion to get this on the floor for discussion. Do I have a motion? Okay, Commissioner Coe. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Lewis. I now open the floor for discussion. Do you have something else, Randy? Before
Yes. Just so you know, this is the first time this happened, but it's perfectly within the law. There is a matter that follows this discussion that the sheriff's office is going to bring to your attention that has not been vetted in a public meeting. This would be the first time that has been discussed or made known to you. So there is another item to be considered. And depending on how you want to handle that, it may or may not change what you have just made a motion and a second on. Nor does it contemplate any amendments.
Okay. The item that he's talking about is a budget submission amendment for a criminal justice coordinator supplemental request. Do we want to go ahead and include that into the motion for the budget recommendations so that we can discuss that at this time also? Is that appropriate, Randy? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My suggestion is that you hear the request before we do anything
Okay.
related to the request. It technically is not included in the budget that we now have a motion and a second on.
Is that okay with the motion makers and the second on that, to hear that addition there? Yeah. Is that okay? Okay, if you want to, Randy, if you'll go ahead and take us into that, please.
Under the law, any office holder has a right to petition this body or the commission up till May 15. The request that is on the agenda for this position that the mayor outlined certainly fits the parameters of what the law contemplates. So the position, as everyone knows, the county is dealing with a rather significant inmate population. It's got a committee that is trying to deal with that. We have a project manager that's trying to deal with that as well. And I think this recommendation has a great deal to do with that same subject and topic. So I think it'd be appropriate to hear firsthand from the sheriff's representatives on this matter before you conclude this item.
Okay, Chief, or who, Jared, you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, committee. First of all, I appreciate all the work you guys have put into this budget this year. It's meant a great deal to us, and I know there's still work to be done, and we appreciate everything that's been put into it. As mentioned in our hearings, this was going to be a position that was going to have to be brought up. We didn't know exactly when, if it was going to happen before the end of this year or if it was going to happen sometime after July, but Deputy Chief Cantrell did mention it during his presentation that we would be bringing something like this to you guys. We've done a lot of work in preparing this and looking at exactly what we needed to do, and with funding and with salaries and with the need, a need assessment. Basically, this position is something that's different from the medical contractor, and Deputy Chief Cantrell can go into exactly what the position is and what it entails, but just know that we would have included this in their original packet if we had had all the information and stuff available at that time. Do you want to speak on the difference between the medical side and?
Yes. Currently, the sheriff's office does have someone who's performing the duties of a criminal justice mental health coordinator as part of a grant. We share that position with other counties, and over the past several months, we've seen a significant reduction in the amount of days that the criminal justice mental health coordinator is in our facility. It's been cut from 4 days in our facility to 2 days. And currently we have a psych nurse through Southern Health Partners that's only in our facility for 8 hours a week. And part of the changes to the contract with Southern Health that Mr. Vineyard referenced is increasing that psych nurse with Southern Health to 40 hours. The criminal justice mental health coordinator is not someone that just deals with mental health issues. They can also deal with those who have drug abuse issues. The main difference between the criminal justice coordinator is the fact that this person possesses a master's, which allows them to perform court admissible assessments, whether it be for mental health or for drug and alcohol addiction. The psych nurse with Southern Health, the one we currently have, has just a bachelor's. Now, they can also have an LPN if they have some significant mental health experience, but they're not at the level to where they can provide those court-ordered assessments. The criminal justice mental health coordinator receives referrals from judges, attorneys, whether it be defense or prosecuting attorneys, and probation for requests and court-ordered mental health and drug and alcohol assessment. They will then take that assessment and provide that to the requesting party, which can be used in lieu of a jail stay as maybe potentially some type of plea agreement. The criminal justice coordinator, mainly, they will work with inmates who are in the facility, but the difference with the psych nurse is just assisting those while they were in our custody. The criminal justice coordinator helps them get everything set up and works with halfway houses, rehab facilities for appropriate placements, and can also work with our nurse practitioner on getting like a bridge prescription. If someone is on medication in our facility and we get them placed in a halfway house, well, they go out, they may not be able to get an immediate appointment. It may be 6 weeks. So the criminal justice coordinator would make that appointment, know that that person has to be there in 6 weeks. They would work with the RN to get them proper medication until they are able to be seen by a doctor. So the criminal justice coordinator works with them on their post-stay in our facility. Occasionally we will have folks in our facility that require your non-traditional placements. One was that I can share with someone who was involved in a large sex trafficking ring, and our criminal justice coordinator was able to work with the FBI, TBI, and get them appropriate placement, where it was something non-traditional, where they would be going to a halfway house or a type of rehab facility. Again, the psych nurse does the initial evaluations on inmates when they come in. They answer requests on the kiosk from an inmate who may need to talk to someone because they're experiencing anxiety, depression, some other type of mental health issues. She will also assess someone prior to mobile crisis being called into our facility, and will make that determination whether they need to come in. And from time to time we will have people in our facility who will go on suicide watch, and the psych nurse deals directly with those while they're on suicide watch and is ultimately the one who can relieve them from suicide watch. But the biggest difference in what each of their duties is the psych nurse is more concentrated on while they are in custody, and the criminal justice coordinator helps them to be able to get things in line and hopefully have things planned and straightened up for them whenever they are able to leave our facility.
Thank you, Chief. Is there anyone have any questions or discussion? Okay.
Yes, please. Excuse me, Chief. So can you help me understand a couple of gaps
Yes, ma'am.
that I haven't connected yet? One being the severely mentally incapacitated inmates. This position doesn't help a whole lot with that, or does it?
This position will, this position person currently, when we have them those 2 days a week, they work with the psych nurse, and they also, while this person's in custody, they will work on finding appropriate placement for that person outside of a jail.
Okay. Can I have another question?
You got it.
So can you help clarify for me how the chain of command is going to work? Of course, is that the psych nurse to the coordinator and then back to you, or?
Well, the psych nurse and the coordinator will work hand in hand on
Okay.
many issues. The criminal justice coordinator at this position is approved will report to the support operations sergeant in the jail, and will also work, hand in hand with the judges and the prosecutors, and making sure that what placement they have in line is appropriate. And then we'll schedule for that person when their case is adjudicated. We'll schedule with whether it's us transporting or an ambulance service transporting that person. They will work with the appropriate party to make sure that person gets transported to their facility, and we'll stay in contact with their family as well.
So will all of the referrals for assessment come from upstairs to downstairs, or can they come laterally?
They can come from inside the facility, and they can come from whether it be the judges, the prosecutor, the public defender's office, or probation.
Okay.
And this person works not only with people in sessions court, but also those in criminal court. So they can touch both those who are charged with felonies and be in circuit court, or those with misdemeanors in sessions court.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cole?
Thank you. Can you provide, if we approve the position, will your current budget cover this, or do you need additional budget for this position?
You directing that at Chief Millsaps?
We are asking to bid in addition to. It is a specialized position. We have went through the steps with Human Resources County side and to classify this position, and it is a specialty position that would require, like Chief Cantrell said, someone that has a psychology degree or a master's degree in that area.
That's it. Thank you.
Is there any other questions or discussion? Okay. Now that has been added to the budget, and we had a motion and a second on the budget, I'll ask that, is there any other discussion on the passing of the 18-19 budget at this time? Commissioner Coe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to amend Fund 115, the Library Cost Center, account 56500 to $2,066,071.
Would you repeat that, please?
Yes.
Commissioner.
So I want to amend Fund 115, the Library Cost Center, 56500 to $2,066,071.
Okay. We have an amendment, motion for an amendment. Randy, you want to speak?
Well, this would be a proposed, so I'm hearing a motion, so it requires a second or nothing will change.
Okay. We have a motion for an amendment to change the Library Fund 115. Do I have a second on that amendment? We'll need a second for discussion, yes. Okay.
Wait a second. Did you second?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not showing up.
If I leave this screen, I'll never get back.
I assume since you seconded it for discussion, you're wanting to discuss it, correct?
I wanted it opened up to the floor because it
Okay.
sounded like Mr. Vineyard had some other
Okay.
points that he wanted to bring up.
Mr. Vineyard, would you like to say anything this time, please?
Not on the motion, but I do, when we deal with this, I've got something else to say.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for an amendment. Would you state your amendment again, Commissioner, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, my motion was to amend Fund 115, the Library Cost Center, 56500 to $2,066,071. This dollar amount is basically last year's approved budget. And the reason I'm doing that is I really feel that the funding level there is what I'm comfortable with, and I really feel the taxpayers really, I understand the cafe is nice, but it isn't even covering its cost. And when you look back, there has been money taken out of fund balance, and even now, there's additional cost associated with that. And I'm proud of our library, and I'm tickled that it's one of the nicest ones I've been to ever, and I want to keep it that way, but I also want to make sure we're controlling the cost. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on that? Mike, you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Vineyard, could you expand on the cost difference on the cafe of what's being spent on it versus what's being brought in on it? Make sure I'm clear on that.
The cost is roughly $143,000 to operate it, and it generates about a little less than $80,000 in revenue.
So we're losing money.
We subsidize the cafe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion or questions before we vote on the amendment? Seeing none, I ask that you register your vote on this amendment on 115, reducing $2,183,841 to $2,066,071. Please register your vote. No, we're not speaking on this right now.
Five yes, 0 no, motion passes.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Vineyard, that will change item 115
Yes.
as was submitted by,
And you'll need to give us just a moment to reflect that amendment.
Okay.
Angela will be doing that, but while she's doing that, if I may, I want to clarify. You've had an additional supplemental request made tonight that has not been dealt with. What you have now, that the time that I spent going over the budget were changes to the budget, and it's amended now by one item. But everybody, I want to make sure everybody's clear that the entire spreadsheet you saw presented up there is part of the amendment part of the motion that you'll be voting on, unless there's something else that happens between now and any amendments or any changes are proposed. So I want to make sure that's clear. I only went over the changes. So everything that's printed in front of you and was on the screen is part of the motion.
does everybody understand what Mr. Vineyard's explaining is about the amendment that was given to us by the sheriff's office? Do you understand? As long as we don't change this budget, that doesn't show up on this.
That is not included. You've
Yeah.
not given them any more money. You've not said I want to amend the budget to fund that request, nor have you said I want to amend the budget to approve the position.
Okay. Commissioner Coe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to make a motion to amend, and I'll need some support on where that needs to go, but based on the Sheriff's Department request of $58,885, I'd like to add it to the proper fund and account number, and basically that is the amount of the library reduction out of this budget. So it would keep the budget neutral, I think.
55 what?
58,885.
58.
58,885.
That's all we have.
885. Okay, so the amendment is to amend item 3A for the Criminal Justice Coordinator supplemental request, and it is to, the amendment says for the position, to approve the position and approve the pay, correct?
Yes, and technically, the amendment is to increase Fund 101, account 54210, and increase that from $9,343,399, increase that, get my calculator out. You already have that run?
Well, by 58,885.
Yeah, the increase to $9,343,399 is $58,885. Let me give you the new number, hold on.
9,402,284.
What was the last three digits? I'm sorry. 284. So the new motion is to increase Fund 101, 54210 account to $9,402,284. I'm sorry, 284. $9,402,284.
Okay. All right, I have a motion to amend that. Do I have a second? Randy, can we, coming from the chair, can I ask a question to you?
Of course.
I agree with the position. Is the funding not available in the budget to fund that position without adding to that, the increase to that budget at this time?
The amount of money, when I went through my presentation, there was a total of $558 available for appropriation. Your options are obviously the motion that was made, and another option would be what I alluded to earlier. You could have said you wanted to increase the authorized strength of the Sheriff's Department by that one position and allow them to do that within the appropriation that I gave.
Okay,
But that would require the Sheriff's Department setting some priorities there as to what they were going to do.
But that's not the amendment in front of us.
The
is
amendment,
funding
that is
it.
not the amendment, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, with what we took from the library, okay. Ms. Hannum, do you have something else you want to say, or you?
No.
Okay. Does anyone else have any discussion on this? Okay, I'll ask for a vote, please.
Four yes, one no, motion passes.
Okay. All righty. Any other amendments before we go on to the total budget?
just a reminder, you'll be voting on not only what I said, but including the two amendments now.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a motion yet on this? Do I have a motion to vote on the budget as presented with the amendments? Commissioner Coe?
I'll second.
Commissioner Kaler? Any discussion or any questions? Okay, I'll ask that you register your vote, please. Go ahead.
4 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Okay, the motion passes and the budget is approved to be sent on to the Agenda Committee. We have yes, go ahead.
It will be on the June Agenda
Agenda
Committee
Committee,
because
correct.
we now move into the public process of considering the recommendation. So there'll be a public hearing that is already set on the schedule, and then it will be before the Agenda Committee at the June meeting. Everything that you have done tonight, we will put online on our website.
Okay. You have the financial reports for information only in front of you? Okay. And we have an addition on the agenda item for a grant application request. This is a 50/50 TDEC waste reduction grant. Randy, you want to explain this right here before we even get a motion on this?
We have a situation that is outlined in the packet. There's a memo from the highway superintendent kind of explaining the circumstances that we find ourselves. Basically, the state of Tennessee is requesting that we consider applying for a grant. There's no way, given our committee structure and timetable, we can do that. It would be my suggestion that the highway superintendent be allowed to apply for the grant. It's up to $500,000. It's a 50/50 match. It would allow the county to expand its recycling options to other parts of the county. And this body and the full commission, if we can comply and complete our due diligence, I say it's the highway superintendent's team that'll be doing it. If we can conclude our due diligence, the deadline is the end of this month. And you can see from the memo, our recommendation is that we proceed. You can't take any action because you have nothing in front of you. Our policy allows the mayor or the finance director to allow them to apply, but we were notified of this yesterday, and we're just making you and the public aware now. And this will go on as information to the full agenda committee. If we are awarded the grant, all of that has to come back to this body and to the full commission, probably in July at the earliest.
Okay. Is this item we do need to vote to send it on?
The motion should be to forward it to the agenda committee for information only.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to send this on to the agenda committee for information only? Commissioner Kaler, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lewis. Any other discussions or questions? I'll ask that you vote on this, please.
4 yes, 1 no, motion passes.
Okay, all righty. April financial reports are in your packet for information only. And at this time, before we do adjourn, I would like to say how much I appreciate the work of this committee, this budget committee, the elected officials and department heads that they have put together this budget. I'm proud that this budget committee has remained committed to no property tax increase. The tough decisions made to not fund a great number of additional requests made by various departments was done with every consideration of our citizens in mind, focusing on our public and employee safety, focusing on improvements to the efficiency of our services provided to our citizens, and focusing on economic development are all the direct influence impacting the quality of life for us in Blount County. Every decision we make should be made with that duty in mind, and I appreciate the hard work and dedication to each of the budget committee members again, and I trust that the commission will find this proposed budget to be acceptable and pleasing, continuing the services of our citizens. Have a motion to adjourn. Okay.